Welcome to Coffee with Democrats, a sensible platform for progressive conversations. Coffee with Democrats is a grassroots movement dedicated to hearing from Democrats, candidates, legislators, and friends from all political backgrounds who want great conversations. Coffee with Democrats is committed to increase Democrat voter registration and Democrat voter turnout by making voting more exciting and meaningful. And now here's your host of Coffee with Democrats, Kevin Dawson.
Well, that really took me back right there. That's a new introduction that we just got in. We had to hire a very expensive firm to help us out with that introduction, and believe me, it cost tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars for that one. So we are so grateful. That was my son Seth who made that for me. So we greatly appreciate his help and desire to help his dad promote Coffee with Democrats. So thanks to everybody for joining us today. This is going to be an exciting day. We are really excited. We're at the Oklahoma Democratic Party headquarters up on North Santa Fe in Oklahoma City. We're going to be joined today by a couple of really fantastic people. Steve Grappe, who is from Arkansas, he will be joining us here in just a little bit. We've got Margaret Blevins from Cleveland County Women Democrats is here with us today. And we also have Liz Wilson from Edmond Democratic Women. Yeah, I get a little bit, I got kind of messed up there for a second. Thank you. And then in person, we're also here with David Roberts. And I can't remember your title, David.
Director of External Relations for the Oklahoma Democratic Party.
So we're really excited about this. So this is how we do our format. Every month, the first Monday of the month, or excuse me, Thursday of the month, the first Thursday of every month, we try to do something in Norman, Oklahoma. That's where we live, and that's our headquarters. So we try to do something down there in Norman the first Thursday. The second Thursday, we try to come up to Oklahoma City, do something in Oklahoma City at one of the local coffee shops. Then the third Thursday, we always go up to Tulsa, and we go to the Tulsa County Democratic Party, and we meet up there, and then we have a great time with Tom Dial and the folks up. So we love them. And then on the fourth Thursday of every month, we try to do something to help out the rural vote in Oklahoma. We have a fifth Thursday, which is, it's very uncommon, but we do have a fifth Thursday. So it was going to be just an extension of what we did for the fourth Thursday. So it's just to carry on. So last week we met with Liz up in Edmond at the coffee shop, great coffee shop up there. Really enjoyed the place. I had better seats because those seats were hard as a rock. But we carried on a really good conversation about how Edmond Democratic Women are their function, their background, and how you help other people as well, help other organizations. We're glad to have Margaret here with us today to talk about what Cleveland County is going to be able to do. And then, of course, whenever we have an opportunity, we're going to move on to talk with David really quickly, because I think David might have other things that he needs to get involved in, as well as Steve Grappe out of Arkansas. We want to give those folks an opportunity to talk as well. I'm one of our close friends on the internet, the Twitter world, that we really appreciated. I appreciated when I first started getting involved as an activist on Twitter. And I'm trying to, again, I'm not real good with names, but Aunt Krabby, she passed away this last week. So we're going to give a shout out to her. We're going to miss her sarcasm, her wit, because she was really good, and we really enjoyed having her and being able to see her posts. I know that she had been in decline for a little while, and we've seen a decline in the number of posts. And then, unfortunately, this week we heard that she had actually passed, and it's going to be a sad time to have her, not present with us. But again, being a person of faith, will be with her sometime in the future. So, welcome. Thanks everybody for being here. Let me do a quick little housekeeping. If you're joining us, please go onto your Twitter space. Up in the upper right-hand side, there should be a share arrow. A little, looks like a half bracket at the bottom with an arrow pointing up. Click on that and share that you are on this space with us to everybody in your sphere, so that everybody knows that that you're listening in, and let's try to build this so that we get more people involved. And I'll do a shout out here. We've got Kelly McGinnis, who is the host of Coffee with Democrats in Arkansas. She is helping us out today in Arkansas, and she's actually simulcasting this on YouTube and Facebook. So we're getting this streamed on multi-platforms and helping to grow the Coffee with Democrats. As we said last week, Coffee with Democrats is growing. We just picked up commitments from Florida, Connecticut, and Ohio to join Coffee with Democrats, which started here in Oklahoma and then involves Coffee with Democrats over in Arkansas. We also have Coffee with Democrats in Georgia. So we're in 6 states now. And it's something that we're really interested in seeing Coffee with Democrats grow to more places. I'm going to talk about today, and today's activity is more about connecting red dots. We need to connect as many red dots in Oklahoma and try to spread the Democratic word among all the different, blue dots. Yeah, throw a dart at me over here, Liz. Or blue dots. We need to connect as many blue dots to fight this, this sea of red that we're in here, because the supermajority is failing Oklahoma, and we see it every single day, and we're seeing the issues. It's about performative hate that they're putting out. We saw some legislation that happened late last week about reducing the sentencing, or the cockfighting bill for allowing for that to be a misdemeanor instead of a felony. And the will of the people was passed some years ago that said, we are going to, we do not want to have cockfighting in the state of Oklahoma, period. And we're going to make it a felony. That was the will of the people. That was a state question that was put before the people in Oklahoma. And now we've got a legislator who I refer to as the cockfighting caucus of the Republican Party, wanted to reduce that from a felony to a misdemeanor. What's the purpose of that? To allow for cockfighting to take place and only be a misdemeanor from now on. And I just don't get it. That was such a backwards thinking move that we see. But we're seeing a continuous grind of backwards thinking coming out of Oklahoma. We've seen women have their rights taken away from them, their health care privileges taken away from them, to the point where it was again, went before the Oklahoma Supreme Court. And thank goodness the Oklahoma Supreme Court actually ruled that if the life of the mother is at stake, an abortion has to be granted. So that is a win for all the women in Oklahoma, not just Republican women, not just Democrat women, not independent women, but all women. And that is something that I think we all have to be very grateful for, is we had some common sense in Oklahoma, because after one loss after another, and we can talk about the Volkswagen deal, we can talk about all these failures that have come to Oklahoma, including this is a negative thing that's been taking place over and over and over. We need to have some common sense like that come back to Oklahoma. And that's why it's so important for us to connect as many blue dots There's a statistic, and you can help me out on this one, David, because I read it that 43% of all the Republican candidates in the state of Oklahoma were elected by proxy just through putting their name on a sheet of paper saying, I want to be a candidate. They had no Democratic Party member opposing them, 43%.
Yeah, and I can't. That sounds accurate. I can't speak specifically to the statistic, but I can tell you that there were many places that had seats that, when you look at the numbers, would be competitive seats that we had, no candidate in at all. And so that is something that certainly the leadership here within the Oklahoma Democratic Party has made a big push towards, and I think that it comes from. It has stemmed from allowing the other side to define us in so many ways, and so people, we've seen a decline in registration. We've seen, all these things that have been obstacles to us having, a good party structure in a lot of these counties, because that's what it comes down to. Is if we have that party support and a grassroots organization, then we can then support a viable candidate that can then go on and run a competitive race. And so that's one of the roles that I've taken on, and the leadership here at the Oklahoma Democratic Party is really pushed towards, is that we are getting party organization and structure in these formerly unorganized counties.
Right.
And so there's a big push towards that, and that will go towards directly supporting having candidates in those seats. And so we've identified the places that we can run competitive races, and we are actively working towards making sure we have a network there on the ground that will be able to support good candidates for those competitive seats.
It's I know you're just getting this movement going, and we're wanting to do everything we can to help. And that's one of the phrases that you're going to hear me say a lot coming forward is, and I'm going to put a twist on John Kennedy's speech. Mine is, ask not what the Democratic Party can do for you, but ask what you can do for the Democratic Party, because we need more people to come forward and help the Democratic Party. We have people in rural counties in Oklahoma who think, well, it's just not going to work. For some reason they think I'm just not going to participate, when in fact their participation and their commitment just to put their name on a ballot might be the difference between, another Republican representative coming to Oklahoma City versus a Democrat. Absolutely. Because if we get a challenger out there in some of these rural counties that just, again, just challenge that Republican narrative, we can actually turn the script.
Absolutely. And I think you hit on it perfectly there, because and one of the things that you don't realize, even if you just have a, so to speak, placeholder type candidate that's sometimes, just ceremoniously taking on that role, it is having that apparatus and that organization in place to continue. And when you don't have that, that's going to make whoever does eventually come out as a candidate be that many years and cycles behind.
Right.
And so we want to absolutely challenge the narrative that they're putting forward, because when we don't, we see what is happening with the radical things that they're trying to do, whether it's school vouchers, targeting women and the trans community. We see all these bad policies moving forward, and the Democratic Party in Oklahoma is the only voice of opposition and voice of sanity, in my opinion, that will move forward to challenge those things and to put up a clear and alternative to the craziness going on.
Right. I'll give you a case in point. Jacob Rosecrans ran back, I think it was in 2016. He ran against an incumbent Republican. He knew it was not going to go well, but he wanted to get his name on that. In 2016, he fell short. I guess it was a landslide, really. He didn't fall short. It was not a good showing on. But that person, again, did not run in 2018, and Jacob Rosecrans again, he had the name recognition from the previous round. He was elected in 2018, and I may be wrong about the dates, but I believe that's correct. In 2018, he got elected. Then in 2020, he got reelected, and they threw everything they could at Jacob Rosecrans. They, meaning the Republican Party and the Republican machine, threw everything they could at him, including the kitchen sink, to try to get him unseated. This last time in 2022, he ran for reelection again. You could see it, and I witnessed it personally. The personal attacks against him, his family members, it just went really into the dirt. Jacob destroyed the Republican person who was running against him. And that was such a vindication for the Democrats actually taking over a Republican seat and then excelling with that and continuing to move forward. Jacob is somebody that I look up to with a lot of admiration, and I think he's a poster child for what can happen in the rest of Oklahoma and the rest of Oklahoma districts. So that's something that I really am passionate about, and why it's so important for us to connect as blue dots. I got it right that time. So let's shift just a little bit, because we've talked a lot about Oklahoma. I know there's a person on the line here, Steve Grappe. If you want to join in with this conversation, talk to us a little bit about how you're doing the same thing in Arkansas.
Oh, well, thanks for having me on today. Arkansas, can you hear me?
Yeah, first of all, let's go ahead and introduce yourself. Go ahead and tell us who you are and give us a little bit of background about what you do with the Democratic Party in Arkansas.
Yeah, my name is Steve Grappe. I am a rancher, farmer, north central Arkansas, about 45 minutes out of Little Rock. And I'm involved with the Democratic Party in multiple ways. I just gave up my seat about 2 weeks ago from being my county chair. And I'm on the executive committee for our state Democratic Party, and just recently was asked to be on the Rules Committee. Well, with that, last year we formed the Rural Caucus of Arkansas. We recognize that in Arkansas we do pretty good organizational work, and we get out the vote in our rural or in our urban and suburban areas. But the rural counties, our voters just don't come out. They don't come out at all. In our last election, Dr. Chris Jones, which was a much more qualified candidate for governor than who we have sitting in the governor's office right now. Of the 75 counties in Arkansas, 69 of them are deemed rural by the USDA and Census Bureau, which says they have less than 50,000 population of their county seat. Well, in the last election, of those 75 counties, 6 are urban and suburban, and Dr. Jones carried those handily. But the 69 rural counties, he had less than 30% of the vote. And so Sarah Sanders came in with a landslide. Well, we recognize that those 69 rural counties just are not being, the message isn't getting through to them. They're not being represented. They don't have a voice. And they're almost completely, we've got a Congress here in Arkansas that I think is similar to Oklahoma. We have like 24 total elected representatives in Congress for both houses. And the rural counties are completely red. White County that I came from, I heard y'all say something about 43% or something went uncontested. I would bet that number is higher in Arkansas. In White County, where I was the county chair before, there's 38 partisan seats that you can run as Democrat or Republican, and there are 38 Republicans that hold those seats. And it makes it tough, because if you don't field candidates across the county, they pull their resources to beat the run in opposition. And so they're literally just running who they want to hold office, and they just go uncontested in many ways. So we formed the Rural Caucus to battle that and to go into our counties and try to rebuild the Democratic message. And so we're using things like Coffee with Democrats to get hyper local. And it is amazing what we're finding. People are coming out of the woodworks. A lot of it has to do with the fact that we have a governor that's trying to run the state of Arkansas into the ground. But people are coming out of the woodworks. And what we do is we have a Coffee with Democrats local around the state. And we started with Fridays. And so like the first one we had was in Northwest Arkansas, a town called Farmington. And I think they're the third Friday of the month. And now they have a Coffee with Democrats in Northwest Arkansas every third Friday of the month. And we left a host in position. Then we went to Jonesboro, had one there and left a host in position so they can have a monthly one. Then we went to Brinkley, left a host there so they can have a monthly one. And now we're working on Mondays. So our goal is to have a Coffee with Democrats somewhere different around the state every day of the week. And then we do the same thing. We're doing town halls where we're going in and having town halls in these same towns to draw the people in and get people excited. And last time I looked at our roster, we have about 480 people in our caucus, and we just formed in October. So it's a movement. We are getting people excited in places they were never excited before. And these outreach, getting hyper local is the key. And people want to know that they are representing themselves, not that we are representing them. And we're going in and identifying the leaders within the communities. And that's who we're going to back to run for office. And I promise you in 24, it's going to look a lot different in Arkansas.
And see, that's the goal that we have in across all of the states where we have a lot of Republican, and I'm going to call them extremists within the Republican Party, who are trying to preach this fascist ideology. And Oklahoma is ripe with that. And that's one of the really dichotomies that we really have to deal with in Arkansas and in Oklahoma. We share that same movement of people that have been radicalized, and their voice has been magnified after the Trump election. So we've really got we've got a real challenge ahead of us, but it's not insurmountable. And I think that having that positivity that you generate in Arkansas and what you're doing in Arkansas, if we can mimic a little bit of what you're doing there in other states, we're going to be very positive in raising a positive awareness about how Democrats are helping the people and not the system. And I think that's so important. So thank you for sharing, Steve. That's a great message that you have. And, you know, if there's anything that you want to contribute to what he was talking about,
Well, absolutely. I just wanted to follow up and say that I actually jotted down a couple of notes, and I think it's just incredible what you're doing in Arkansas, and then the larger picture of what the Coffee with Democrats program and the whole concept is doing as far as making inroads into rural communities, building coalitions, and strengthening and broadening the Democratic Party support in these areas where we've seen a decline that didn't have to happen. And so I applaud this program and what you're doing in Arkansas, and I hope that we can coordinate and look to the future and build a broader party.
So yes, let's. This is Liz Wilson.
Hi, Steve. This is Liz Wilson, president of Edmond Democratic Women. We are a suburb city just north of Oklahoma City, you know, the largest city in Oklahoma. My question for you is, did you find once you started meeting with Democrats in these rural towns that apathy is not really what was going on? Was it more that they thought they were all alone, that they were the only Democrat in their neighborhood or in their rural acreage? What was the main reason why they didn't come out till now?
Well, here's one of the things that we are focusing on in the rural counties of Arkansas that I think is getting people to step up and say, oh yeah, I look like that. That's who I am. That's how I feel. The two-party system has gotten so divisive, and it's so far either left or far right that people are tired of the fighting. They're tired of the extremism. And there's no science behind this, but I would guess that about 20% of Arkansas belongs in what they would call the far left or the radical left. And we've probably got a little tick more than that, maybe 25% that fall in that same category on the radical right. But the 25% on the radical right are getting out and voting in bigger numbers than the 20% on the left. But the majority of us live in that 55% to 60% of the space in the middle. Myself, I was a Republican most of my life. I was one of the state youth coordinators for Bush in '88. I campaigned against Bill Clinton in college. So, but I'm a moderate. And if you look back, even Bill Clinton was a moderate. Mike Beebe, that was the last Democratic governor, was a moderate. Asa Hutchinson, which was the last Republican governor, was a moderate. So the majority of Arkansas, they're not on the far left and they're not on the far right, but they have not had people representing them. And they haven't had people that have been speaking their language. So as the rural caucus, we are listening. We're listening to what the communities around the state are about. And they're not talking about these big culture war issues. They're talking about the fact that they've got $40 in their bank account and they don't know if they're going to be able to buy their groceries or pay their taxes or have money to get their prescription drugs. That's what rural Arkansas is worried about. They're worried about their road being washed out. They're worried about these kitchen table issues, and that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about the other. We're not getting sucked into the culture wars. That is an intentional distraction. And people are listening and they're saying, that's what's important to me. And we are also trying to reach across the aisle because we realize there's a lot of Republicans that don't like what's going on. And we're welcoming them to our town halls and to our conversations. We had a town hall meeting Tuesday night of this week, and the two opening speakers were the former Democratic governor candidate and the Republican representative for that district is who we had as our opening speakers. We want to meet the people where they live, how they feel, and we're trying to move the party of Arkansas, not the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, but the rural caucus is trying to move to the middle. And that's where I think most people live.
Well, that sounds super. This is Liz Wilson again, Steve, and that sounds super. I'm assuming you guys, whether it's through the town hall speakers or through social media or a website, try to give the people attending, the people who are participating, some resources or information that they can do. Following up on what Kevin was challenging us is how can we help change our communities, our state? That's what we do in our group. We understand out of our 300 or so members, everybody has their skill set, everybody has their comfort zone, but we have something for everyone. If they want a dynamic speaker, if they want to hear about legislation that they need to advocate for or against, if they want a voter registration opportunity, we'll plug them in there. If they are good at campaigning, we'll get them going there. If they want to hold a fundraiser. So I really liked hearing that you're engaging people and then Kevin's challenge, because we can all join whatever hobby group we want. We want quilting, gardening, those are wonderful, running. But we need to make our voices known. If not us, who?
Something else that I want to talk about what Steve said was you gave the bell curve. The people on the extreme right, the people on the extreme left, and then that leaves you at the top of the bell in the middle. And I'm going to bring in a subject about what happened in Nashville and this tragedy, this horrible tragedy that took place. And what is the one statistic that we read on a regular basis out here is the number of people who support some kind of limitation on guns, whether, they want some kind of gun control. 68% of the people in the United States feel like there needs to be gun control. Then you've got 20% on the right who are saying, we want no gun control whatsoever. We want everybody to have a nuclear weapon and we can destroy the cities as we desire. And then you've got the people on the extreme left who are saying, we shouldn't have kitchen knives for people to be able to carry from the store out to their those are extreme messages that I said, and they're radically extreme on both sides that I just referred to. And I apologize if I went too far with that. But the idea is we've got extremists out there who are passing, this judgment on what should be done when we should be listening to the core group in the middle who are saying, just do something reasonable. In this tragedy that took place out there, having a good solid red flag law in place where this person had going to a counselor, could have been flagged for possible violent issues, could have taken this whole thing and de-escalated it. And that's something that the co-founder of Coffee with Democrats, Steve Holcomb, and we talk about on a regular basis is red flag laws. That's so important for us to talk about. And that's going to lead me to promote Coffee with Democrats in 2 weeks, because we're going to have Adrian Fontes on here from the Secretary of State for the state of Arkansas. He's a Marine, and he'll talk a lot about the Second Amendment. He's going to go into that in great detail. And we're really looking forward to us being able to have that conversation with him. So, Kelly, do you have a question?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to go back for a second. I think it was Liz that had asked Steve about voter apathy in rural Arkansas or in rural areas. And I just want to speak on my experience personally and what I've seen in talking with people that I live around and just different friends of mine. What I've seen and what I've experienced is it is voter apathy as far as people just feel like they're not represented. They feel like their voices are not being heard. They feel like they're not being represented. And I think that's a big deal. I love that the Rural Caucus and Coffee with Democrats is going into areas and we're talking to people and we're listening to them. That's important and that's very much needed. I do want to push back a little bit with Steve. I love you. I don't like the phrase culture wars. I think that we use that a lot, but when we're talking about these issues, I don't feel like they're culture wars. I feel like they're just human rights issues, and they shouldn't be divisive. They are because of the climate of our politics right now, but we are talking about human beings, and when it comes to that, I don't think that we should hold back and kind of, I feel like culture wars kind of is a very just soft way to phrase it. I think we really need to start calling it what it is. And I think that's what is needed in our politics. And I feel like that is what people want. I know that's what I want from my politicians. I want someone that I feel is going to go to the Capitol and stand up for me. I don't see that in Arkansas. I don't see that across a lot of these red states. And if we did have representatives that we could fully get behind and support, that we felt really had our best interests at heart, we would see more voters getting involved and getting behind them and voting.
Oh, I think you touched on a great point there. I think what the disconnect is that, and he used the term culture wars, and I think that's probably just because that's what most people identify it as. And it's not that necessarily that these rural folks and rural Democrats aren't, trying to support these other things. I think that the main issue is that the other side tries to use it to define us as that's our only thing. The Democratic Party is so much more broad than that. And absolutely, we want to defend, all these people that have been targeted by the anti-trans legislation. We want to be an inclusive party and stand up for people's rights. But the disconnect, I think, is that you have these people, he mentioned, worrying about their roads washing out. And that's something I identify with because I'm from rural southeastern Oklahoma. But you have these seniors that are deciding, well, do I want to pay for my medicine or do I want to pay for my rent? And when those issues are at the forefront of their mind, they often seem secondary to maybe something that would be a more culture war-esque type of issue. And those are very important issues. Don't get me wrong. And those are things, but the legislation that they're putting forward, they're using it to define our party and to further divide us. And I think that's where we have the problem is that we do stand up for the rights of all these people. We want to fight for those things, absolutely. But the other side is totally distorting our position on those things, and that's why we lose some of the rural voters. And so I think it's crucial that we further define ourselves instead of playing defense all the time against what the Republicans are saying about us being, radical extremists, that sort of thing. And we just should run on what we believe in and what we are going to do and the results that we're going to deliver to rural Oklahomans and all Oklahomans.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I think what is needed very much from Democrats is, instead of being reactive, being proactive and honestly calling it what it is. Instead of saying it's a culture war, calling it a human rights issue, because
Yes.
that's what it is. And that is what it is. Let's call it what it is instead of saying it's a culture war and we'll just forget about it. No, it's a human rights issue, and let's deal with that human rights issue. We're not going to let you infringe on someone else's human rights, because who is next after that?
Right, right.
Can I speak to that a second?
Sure.
And just to address part of this, I believe in equity among all and liberty for every single person among all. Now, what is getting confused here is that I will fight with heart and breath for every single individual person on the planet. But with how they're making this a war is they're taking a handful of very important issues. No one is saying it's not important. And they are shining gigantic spotlights on it. And the other 900 issues they're quietly passing under the table that is controlling and hurtful to a mass of the population. This is much bigger than just a fight for trans bathroom rights. And I am absolutely in that fight. This is about the Republican Party trying to find a way for corporations and the wealthy to control the working class. They need a working class that will work for subpar wages. They're lowering the age for kids to work. They're making it where kids can work at 13 without their parents knowing about it. They're expanding our prison systems. They're making a separate class of citizens that they can control. And they're using the culture wars to drive our attention while they quietly put handcuffs on the rest of the population.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. This is Liz and Steve. I think we all agree. I've heard some passionate from Oklahoma legislators that have said something similar to that in our state, and they're deflecting. Education, living wage, affordable housing, economy. reproductive health care, all of these things is where they should be focusing, not to the choir in this room. And
but again, that's the voice that we need to continue to have. And with us having this streamed on multiple platforms for other people to be able to hear, our passion is to have liberty for all. And I love that about what you just said, and the fact that we are inclusive. That you said that, Liz, that we are inclusive, and that's something that we want to make sure that everybody understands. That, you know, we're not trying to just cater to a very small group of demographic that's going to be the minority that's going to control the majority. We don't want that. We want to have everybody having an equal place. So, you know, anything that we can do to spread that word, anything we can do to you know, address this ideology that is being pushed by the Republican Party, that socialism, you know, it's not socialism to help one another. That's what I'm trying to, you know, I have to, you know, kind of, it sets me back on my heels when I hear people talk about, you know, the socialist agenda is nothing more than the golden rule that I was taught growing up in Christian school. So, you know, I digress, because there's other religions out there that we want to be inclusive in all of them as well. But it's the fact that we need to treat people with the same respect and dignity that we want to treat ourselves. So I'm going to give you the opportunity, David, if you want to pitch into any, you know, is there any other topics, anything else that we need to shift from, or do we need to just
I
keep
think
going
I
on
think
this?
you touched on a great thing there, and just to kind of wrap up my time with you guys, the way that they often try to define us, whether it's using the big scary S word, socialism. I mean, there's such a disconnect, and there's so much. We absolutely need to define ourselves in a more positive way, and not constantly be on defense against whatever mud that they're slinging at us. So I think that going forward, just to show people how inclusive and how we fight for those who maybe we give voice to the voiceless, and we fight those battles, and we want to define ourselves on what we plan to accomplish and what we do accomplish going forward.
So we have a special guest with us from Georgia. It's Madeline Ryan Smith. She ran for House District 158 out of Georgia. Madeline, you have a question, or you raised your hand there. You want to comment about what we're talking about?
Yeah. Hey guys, I just read in the conversation and just kind of put this in people's minds. I think when we talk about the Democratic Party, especially on a national level, and we talk about how Democrats want to be inclusive and we want to fight for these rights and human rights and all these things, I think it's very, very imperative that the entirety of the Democratic Party, especially leadership in our state parties and Democratic candidates who are running, need to understand that the label of being a Democrat doesn't automatically make you an activist for something. It automates you an activist or an ally with any other population. That label doesn't make you that. Your actions make you that. So when we talk about being inclusive and including all and giving the voiceless a voice, right? Me personally, I am the Disability Caucus chair for the state of Georgia. So I try to advocate on a statewide level for people with disabilities. In our state, Republicans and Democrats alike classically leave us behind, both sides of the aisle, classically. So when we talk about including everybody, we need to make sure that we're not just talking about it, but we're also walking the walk, that we're actually being active. Also, that includes showing up to these spaces and with these groups and talking to these people when it's not an election year, when you're not running for office, when you're not asking for votes or for money. We need to be showing up on off years and at random times over the summer, when classically it's a slow time for politicians. If we do nothing and we don't put ourselves in front of those people and listen more than we talk, that's wasted time. So I think it's very important for anybody who sees themselves as in a leadership position or wants to run for office or wants to be the voice of reason, if you will, in politics, need to remember that there are millions of people in this country that do not look, act, think, or sound like any of us, and that we need to be active, including all of those people in a real sense and doing the work to get that done. And so, I think it's important, especially now, sorry, last thought, that we don't spend 2023 tooting our own horns about how great we are. We need to recognize that we can do better and do the work for 24.
I love what you said, though, about we got to continue this conversation. We can't just back away and wait until the election cycle to have this conversation again. We got to be talking about it now, because the election, in reality, the election cycle never ends. The election cycle never stops. We have to continue to have this conversation, in these tough conversations and realizations that we falter, and we've got to be able to correct ourselves and make those adjustments. So it's that old plan, do, check, and adjust process that we need to realistically and look at ourselves and try to improve constantly. It's this constant improvement, because we're not everything. And just like the Constitution talks about having a more perfect union, it doesn't say that we will have a perfect union, but a more perfect union. We need to think of ourselves having a more perfect policy and platform, because we are never going to be perfect, but we've got to be more perfect than what we were yesterday. So, anything you want to add, Dave?
I'll just add that it's been an honor to be here and to be part of such a great program, and I look forward to coordinating with everyone in the future. And I do encourage anyone that's thinking of getting involved with the party to reach out to you can even send me an email. My email is david@okdemocrats.org, or reach out to the state party in some way, whether you're considering running for office or want to back someone else running. We are building as many inroads as we can to all the communities, especially those rural communities. And so going forward, I'm really looking forward to working with you and helping strengthen and rebuild our party.
Well, in Coffee with Democrats, that was the whole purpose of our organization, was to help connect people back during the election process, and we've expanded beyond that. And we're looking forward to having relationships with other like-minded people, whether they be independent or, like what Steve was talking about, Republicans who really appreciate the platforms that we have to try to help one another. And I know there's a lot of Republicans out there who have that thought, the neighbors, that it's a policy that I have, that, when we talk with neighbors, I'm going to be living with these people for a long time. I don't want to make enemies out of them. I want to make friends out of them, even though we don't agree with one another, but we want to continue to carry on dialogue with one another in a friendly manner. And we got to be good friends with them, because at some point we're going to have to rely on one another. They're going to have to rely on me. I'm going to have to rely on them. And that is the platform I think that we need to move forward, is being those good neighbors. So Madeline, thank you for speaking up. You really, you keep us grounded. We greatly appreciate that. Steve, you have something more you want to add?
Yeah, just something that kind of add to the overall. It's kind of a pivot from where we were, but one of the things with the rural areas that I know we have to keep in mind in Arkansas, and I just want to put it out there to a little worm in people's ears in other states. We talk about the 43% that went uncontested, and we're trying to get people to run on all these offices, but there's a bigger need than even that. And we could have people run in every single office across the state of Arkansas as Democrats. But if we don't have talent helping them and coaching them and teaching and training and helping them build their campaigns, they're all going to lose. The biggest fear when I'm talking to people about running is just that deer in the headlights of what do I do? What's all the steps and hoops you got to jump through and the paperwork that you've got to do? So one of the missions that we have as a rural caucus is to not just recruit candidates, but we're trying to build a campaign machine of personnel around the state that we can plug and play with whoever the candidates that we find to represent the people are, and to train new talent and teams of campaign managers and fundraisers and volunteer coordinators. We got to think about building our bench to win some of these races, not just the candidates to run in them.
You know, you bring out a very good point in that the fact that we're just sitting here listening to you and we're thinking that goes hand in hand, excuse me, goes hand in hand with what we were talking about the last two election cycles, and that is get out to vote, because Democrats have this nearsightedness that we don't want to look beyond where the vote, and we don't go vote. We've got to change that, and we've got to get people interested in voting. And the GOTV process that we're using in Oklahoma, and I know that you're using it in Arkansas and other states, we've got to focus on get out to vote. And what is it going to take to make voting and following somebody and supporting a candidate exciting? Because this is you. This is affecting you. You always want to talk about what is in it for me. It's this. We've got to talk about the candidate. We got to support the candidate. We got to vote for the candidate. It's got to be exciting. We've got to be excited about doing that.
You know, my wife last night, I turned and said, they're about to pass a $500 million prison bill to build all these new prisons and add 31 million more in upkeep to our budget every year. You know, how are they doing that? And my wife turned and looked at me and said, Steve, we're doing that. Whether we're on the winning side of this or not, we elected those representatives.
Right.
And that kind of hits real close to home in what we're trying to do and getting people that do represent us up in office. So it's just a fun takeaway.
Steve, this is Liz Wilson again, Edmond Democratic Women here in Oklahoma. Are you challenging people who come to your town halls, who engage in coffee with Democrats? Contact 5 people to vote in the next election. I agree with Kevin. It helps if you're excited about the candidate. But even if you're not, this is our civic duty. Exactly. I took my small children every single time, just like my parents did, to the polls. I choose to vote absentee now, and I do it every election. I get my relatives to do it. Challenge the people you're engaging with to join a text bank. I just joined with 6 other people, and we texted 11,900 people through a nonprofit that set it up, and we had technology, and it was through Call Hub. I donated 2 hours of my time. I have other things I could do. Nobody should be sitting on the sidelines. Do your garden club, do your book club, but also do something every week to help elect Democrats. If we don't do it, who will?
Right.
That's just my take, is we can't just sit aside and let somebody else do it.
And I know Margaret is involved with Cleveland County Women Democrats. You're pushing the effort. You know, you've got a very active Facebook program. You're very active in making sure that everybody is aware of what's going on. We have a vote, and early voting starts with today.
So 2 days.
So we've got early voting now in Oklahoma, and it's kind of ironic that a lot of the people that we talk to, they don't know that it's another election. We just had an election for marijuana last month, but the election doesn't really happen until November, is what I keep being told. But the idea is, Margaret, we got to get out and vote every single time. We've got to be micromanagers of our own destiny. And the only way we can be a micromanager of our own destiny is to vote.
This is Margaret Blevins. I think a good portion of our ladies do vote, but we can't seem to get any more engaged on Facebook
Right.
where they can know more. And so
So I've got a very good answer to that. We talked about this last week about Twitter. We've got Elon Musk who took over Twitter. He wants to turn it into the Fox network of the social media platforms. You had the guy who has Facebook. He acquiesced that to Zuckerberg. He acquiesced it to the conservative movement before 2020. And in 2016, he actually was able to use the conservative movement, just gave him full bore. So Facebook forced us into having Donald Trump as our president in 2016. But again, Twitter allowed us to use our own platform and our own voice to challenge that in 2020. My point is, when you're talking about social media, never give up on it. If you give up on Twitter, you're surrendering an election potentially. You can't give up.
no,
You've got to, you're focused on Facebook. You've got to stick to Facebook. You've got to challenge the conservative narrative. And that's what you do. That's what your movement is all about. And that's what we need to be focused on too, is we can't give up on Twitter. We can't give up on Facebook. We've got to stay focused on that because we've got to challenge constantly this narrative and these lies. I mean, oh my God, these lies that are just the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world and the Lauren Boeberts of the world. They're just throwing these lies one right after the other, and they're just trying to throw crap at the wall to see what sticks.
And don't forget, this is Liz again, don't forget the nonpartisan races. In Oklahoma, vote April 4. We have municipal elections. We have school board elections. There are all kinds of candidates out there. Pick the candidate that's going to represent you, even if it's not your party. We have to vote. We can't let the extremists take over.
But you got to know who your candidates are, because right now we've got a candidate in, I can't remember where it is, running for school board, who is ultra MAGA, who wants to force sex clubs out of our schools. And I'm like, we got sex clubs in our school? When did that lie start? I just can't believe that we got people.
Vote for the opponent.
Yeah, because
nothing's going to change unless we engage at the
Right.
polls, registering voters, supporting candidates, calling our legislators. Do your garden club, do your book club, but also every week do something to help your community politically.
I think it's important though, especially when we're talking about these rural caucuses, is you have a unique opportunity with doing your weekly coffee with Democrats, but also as individuals, I think it's important to be compassionate, but to fact check.
Absolutely.
I think it's incredibly
Absolutely.
important to be compassionate, but to fact check people who want to spew lies, just to say, show me where your statistics are coming from. Show me where your information is coming from. Where are you founding this? What is your foundation for this? Because challenging somebody's personal beliefs is almost like telling them that you're not who you've always wanted or who you've always been. You're not right, and it's an incredibly personal decision for you to go, I've been wrong. I've not been right in my perspective. I've not been correct in what I've been believing. A belief system is incredibly hard to change in a human being because it's a fundamental part of who they are.
Right.
Having compassion, providing the statistics, fact checking them, and understanding that, this like wolves not sheep mentality is actually just a bully system.
Right.
And that it's okay for you to just question
and
what they're saying.
And know when you can't engage and cut your losses and vote for the opponent when you can't engage your neighbor. If you're bringing up excellent points, but if you can't engage the neighbor, then just vote for the opponent and encourage your neighbors and friends and family to vote for the opponent.
Amen.
All right. Well, that's going to bring a close to this week's Coffee with Democrats. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. This was such an awesome conversation. I have really enjoyed this. This is probably one of the most exciting ones that I've had recently that it just seems like we just keep building with one another. We keep building each other up. So please come back and join us. Next week, we're going to have Madison Horn with us. We are really looking forward to this conversation next week. We're going to talk about cybersecurity. We're going to talk about a lot of the issues that are taking place. Madison's staying involved. she's going to be with us again. So we're looking forward to having this conversation next week with Madison Horn. The week after next, we got to talk about Adrian Fontes. The Secretary of State for the state of Arkansas is going to be with us, and he's going to challenge the narrative about 2A. We are so excited about all of these upcoming events. So come back next week, be with us with Coffee with Democrats. And until then, everybody, please be safe. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
All right.